On today's Sherpa review, we bring in Bill Sweetman, Jeff Sass, and Drew Rosener to discuss the usual, domains at auction, the current market, media options, best month of the year. But then towards the end, we get really interesting. Drew talks for a while about the efficient and effective capital allocation factors. He really gets on fire about all asset classes, especially the importance of exogenous factors during these uncertain times. On top of that, each of these folks, Bill and Jeff are some of the biggest movie buffs in the domain industry. So all three of them discuss not only business recommendations for podcasts or TV or movie, but also entertainment options. I left with hours worth of ideas, and I hope you do too. Hey, Sherpa Network, thanks for joining us. I'm Tess Diaz, executive producer of DomainSherpa.com, and today we're doing the DomainSherpa review. This is the show where we get into the minds of successful domain name investors using real examples so we can learn strategies and tactics to become better investors ourselves. We'll have our 3 segments to the review. First, we'll start off learning what the Sherpas recently bought or sold, hear a little bit about what's going on in the market today. Next, we'll discuss some domain names going to auction soon at NameJet.com and whether the Sherpas think they're a good investment opportunity for you. And finally, we have some real forward thinkers on today's show. We're going to discuss what we think, but particularly what we hope for the industry in a 3 to 5 year vision. So delighted to have 3 past Sherpas and industry thought leaders joining us today. Hello, Bill Sweetman, joining us from Name Ninja. How you doing, Bill?
I am great. Happy spring, everyone.
Nice to see you. You look like you're having a happy spring. I hear there's a tulip festival up in Ottawa.
Yes, Tulip Festival opened, I think, over this past weekend, and it magically combined with a little bit of snow, which is a first time ever in the history of Ottawa. Tulip Festival and snow in May. Who would have thunk it?
Wow, that's wild. What a great way for people in Ottawa to just go for a walk without really congregating. But I hear you have yours in your front yard.
I do.
Cool. All right. Well, if we ever have a tulip show, I'll make sure a tulip tour, we'll have you on. Jeff Sass, hello, joining us from .club, and looks like you are in the heart of Manhattan there. How you doing?
Yeah, not really. This is the Zoom at home edition of Domain Sherpa, so we can be anywhere. So, and I will tiptoe through those tulips with Bill one of these.
Jeff, I feel like
tiptoe through some tulips with a tap of acid.
Yeah. This is going to be a good show. And Drew Rosener joining us from MediaOptions.com. Hello, Drew. How you doing?
Loaded question. Loaded question. I'm good. More or less all good. Yeah, it's basically, without going down a rabbit hole, that's basically all I'd say.
Well, your rabbit holes are sometimes our favorite. But that's all right. We'll get started when you're ready.
Yeah, but we don't want to go down them at the first sentence of the show.
Yeah. We got to hold out that later on there will be a good one.
Yeah.
Each of you for joining me. I know you're so busy with your fully packed travel schedules, but thanks for making the time to be on the show. So let's do this. What's new, Sherpas? We're going to go through something you recently acquired or sold in the past few weeks, preferably. We want to learn what you paid or received for the domain, why you thought it was a good deal, how the negotiations progressed. Really, we just want to mostly hear what's going on in the market today and what other Sherpas think of that. So Bill, you're up first. What's something you bought or sold lately?
Great. So this is always a challenge for me because I'm a buyer broker and most of the deals I transact are covered under or hidden behind NDA agreements. So usually there's nothing I can talk about, but I actually can talk about a deal. But let me start with the domain names, the domain name to just get people's perspective. Because I quite like this name, and this was an acquisition I did for a client. So the domain name is racefans.com, racefans.com. So
right.
Over to the Sherpas for what they think of that and what that might have been acquired for.
Okay, so you acquired racefans.com for a client. All right, Drew and Jeff, you get to guess what you think you paid for it.
Race fans. It's a good domain. I'm going to guess it's something to do with horse racing because that's a pretty hot category. I'm going to say... Okay.
Not horse racing.
All right. I'm going to say race fans. I'm going to say $25,000.
Okay, $25,000. What do you think?
So I'm gonna go lower. I think Race Fans, it's a good name, and obviously it can point to many different industries, whether it, you mentioned horse racing, but it obviously could be car racing, it could be running, it could be any kind of race, other than the human race, because we're not doing that well right now. But other races, I would say, I'm going to say it was more like 12.5.
Okay.
Go lower.
Right.
That's a big difference.
So Jeff is warmer, but there's a bit of a gotcha here. So the name was acquired on NameJet through the expiry auction for one of my clients. My client is in the car racing, car enthusiast business. I actually got the NameJet newsletter a month or so ago. I get it obviously every week. And I saw this name, it was listed in the newsletter. And because I know I'd worked with this client before, I reached out to them and said, hey, there's this really great race name that's expired. Would you like me to take a run at getting it? And they said, oh yeah, great. And we defined a budget. And they gave me a significant budget to acquire it. I basically said to them, look, if it's going to sell in the auction, it'll probably be picked up by a domainer. And if a domainer picks it up, they're probably going to want 10, 20, 30 grand for it. Like it'll be in the tens of thousands. I said, but probably we can get it for less than that in the auction. So long story short, after about half an hour of me duking it out with the other top bidder, I picked it up for the client for $2,128.
Oh, nice.
Done.
Which was way below the client's budget. Client is ecstatic. Yeah. And I just think it's an incredible brand name. And there's no trademarks either. Like it's completely clean slate, fantastic brand. I can't wait to see what they do with it.
Wow.
I'm sort of torn on the subject, but I've always kind of felt, I'm torn only because I actively participate in these auctions and want to be able to buy good domains at good prices. But I've always felt that there was a huge hole in the market. You have hundreds of people, mostly in India and Eastern Europe and in Africa, who are hustling, trying to make a living, and they're mostly front running these auctions, emailing folks, trying to sell the domain before it even closes, and that's not kosher. That's bad. That's creating inefficiencies and bad reputations throughout the industry and for the industry, and it's a clusterfuck. However, what you did, there's a huge gap in the market there, and it's not worth it for you to go reaching out to every potential end user who could benefit from one of these domains that's expired. But it's worth it on some, and it's worth it for other people on a lot of other things. And there is, in the world we're in, 30%, practically 30% unemployment in the United States alone. I think it's 60% here in Portugal at the moment. There's a lot of people for ways to make money, and it's like, as far as I'm concerned, domain names. We'll get into this later in the show, but like, domain names are the future. I mean, if there's anything that we do know is fact, there's a lot of uncertainty in this environment, right? But if there's one thing that we know as an absolute certainty, is that this virus has caused the expedience of the shift to digitalization. And that's what's good for domain names. Domain names are the underlying asset class in the digital economy. So I think that, you know, that's a great example just of like, you know, a little bit of arbitrage and a little bit of actually providing real value to businesses, right? Like there are a lot of businesses that could benefit from owning these names. That business will ultimately make money because you help them get that name. And
it was interesting because
you made some money.
It was interesting because when I saw the name initially, I thought of a different client because there were two different clients that I've worked with had a connection to the automotive racing world. So I reached out to the first one, and he was like, "Oh, that's a great name, but yeah, no, we don't have a use for it, but thanks for letting us know." And then then I reached out to the other one, and the other one was actually, he said, "Let me introduce you to my colleague. He would love to get that name for something we're working on or would like to work on." And so I'm just really happy with the way it worked out. So
I think it speaks so much to the importance, again, of the relationship, ongoing relationships with your broker. I don't know how much companies really are beginning to grasp that. I think still not a whole lot, but it's really important to have an ongoing relationship with a broker where they know what you have going on, what markets you're moving into, what changes you may be thinking about, so that if something does come up, there's a time and a space for it, you know?
It also highlights the importance of having an opportunistic mindset in this business, because you really don't know when a certain name is going to become available or a certain term suddenly has value. And if you're not always approaching it with that open kind of opportunistic outlook, you're going to miss those opportunities. So, you know, it's not black and white. You have to always be looking for that unexpected opportunity.
You're right. And Jeff, I feel like you see the world in Technicolor. Yeah, it's good to work with creative people, isn't it? All right, Jeff, what'd you buy or sell lately?
Okay, so I'll go with a sale of a .club name. So we recently sold a couple of weeks ago, Collectors.club, collectors, plural, .club.
Now, was this a registry reserved domain?
So no, actually this was sold, it was sold through the registrar channel. Do you want me to say which registrar, or does that give too many clues as to potential pricing?
I don't know. You boys ready for that, or you need more info?
So it was sold by GoDaddy. So I'll tell you that.
Is there another registrar?
There's still a handful out there.
Well, I'm going to go first with that one because I like that name. You know, both Jeff and I are huge movie fanatics. You know, I'm a bit of a movie collectibles collector, and that's I'm pretty sure it's $1 billion industry, just all the trinkets and trash related to movies. So I think that's a really solid name. And I actually, after the show, I'm kind of curious to see what the buyer's done with it or will do with it. So Collectors Club, so many potential uses, and it could be collectors of anything, not obviously just movie stuff. And it could be a subscription box thing, who knows? But regardless, it's the one-word domain. I think it's actually better than the singular because it's about the collectors, plural. So I look at that as a great brand. And so I think the buyer should have been happy to get that for, I'm going to say, somewhere in the $15,000 to $25,000 range.
Okay.
So I'll say $20,000 just to put a number on it.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little lower. I'm going to say, I don't know, $8,000. But I agree. I like Collectors Club a lot. Collectors.club. Club. Yeah, good name. If I had to take a stab at what it'll eventually be, it'll be another one of these, fractional investment platforms for, collectibles, which I actually believe is an amazing emerging business. But I think it's getting a bit crowded. But I think it's a very exciting space, and that's a very cool name for it. I was just thinking about it though. Is like, I think Collector Club singular is the better domain. Collector Club, Collectors Club. That's a tricky one.
Yeah. I think Collectors Club.
Collectors sounds good. It flows from
off
the
Collector Club, right?
Collectors. I think Collectors. I don't know. I think they're both good names.
I mean, it's hard. It's hard. I flip. Which is a good sign, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with $8,000. I'm gonna stick with 8.
Okay. So I think first of all, in some respects, you're almost both right in that. Drew is correct. Drew is very close in terms of the actual sale price. So it's sold by GoDaddy for $7,000, right? But I say that Bill was almost correct because that was previously priced at 20 grand. So we actually repriced at .club. We repriced a lot of our names to get them into the registrar channel, because one of the things that we've found is, that's where the action is. And we're selling, on a daily basis, we're selling tons of premium names through the registrar channel. So we did a reevaluation, and rather than hold out for higher prices, it makes more sense to get the volume that we can get through the registrar channel. So we took a lot of great names like Collectors.club, which was previously a $20,000 name, and lowered their prices to get them into the flow at the registrar channel. So it was a great price for a great name, and we're happy to have it out there and have it in the hands of someone who hopefully will put it into good use.
Very
Jeff,
cool.
I just wanted to also wish .club, I think it's your 6th anniversary in the last week or so.
Yeah, last week was 6 years since we launched, which is hard to believe. 8 years since we started this whole process. Yeah, it's crazy.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's hard to believe.
Yeah.
And you're still
everything's changed and everything's the same, right? 6 years later.
Right?
You're still fighting the good fight, and you're out there pushing hard and selling domains, and so congratulations on making it through the long slog.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting ride, and in the situation we're currently in, I am so thankful that I had the opportunity to do all the traveling we did in the early days of .club. And, literally the first 36 months from launch, I was on the road, pretty much nonstop all over the world, around the world several times. And looking at it back from the current situation we're in, I'm so grateful to have had the chance to meet so many of our registrars in person, to meet so many of you, Drew, and people who lived outside the country in person. And so it's fascinating because it's a business that was so driven by travel. And right now, that piece is sadly missing. So it's been an interesting journey for sure.
Do you think there'll be a switch? Because, there's so much talk about the, this kind of isolation, not just that it's going to end and be done, but maybe 18 months of on and off or something. How much are people switching to online connectedness? Is that something that .club thinks will bring in some extra business?
Well, I think, getting into the latter part of our agenda for today and talking about the future, certainly the current situation has opened up tremendous opportunities, not just for .club, but I think for anyone in the domain industry, in the website builder industry, in the hosting industry. I'm seeing just in my circle, people who were not online before suddenly have a need to go online. My oldest son is a chef. He was laid off. He built a website now, and now he's doing online virtual cooking classes. He had never had a need to have a domain name or a website. So we registered, chefsaccess.club and chefsaccess.com, and went to GoDaddy and built him a website. And my fiance, who some of you have met, she's a therapist. For years, 20 years, she's had a private practice that relied on people coming to see her in person. And I was always saying, as the tech guy in the family, why don't you go online? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And she said, nah. Now she's seeing, more patients than she's ever seen before. doing it through telemedicine online. I built a website for her. She never had a website. She never needed one. And that's going to continue when the pandemic is over. She's not going to go backwards now that she sees the benefit of being able to do all this stuff virtually and online, So I think we're very fortunate to be in an industry that's digital first and foremost, and more so that people who are faced with new work situations and new situations at home are looking to expand their online presence, or looking to find ways to earn a living, to connect with people, to do all these things online. And a domain name is at the heart of all of that. How many people are using a domain name pointing to their Zoom meetings? We use a .club domain that points to our Zoom meetings. I use one personally when I have a call with someone. I give them a domain name that links to the Zoom meeting so they don't have to remember. I got my gym to do that. We've been doing our workouts by Zoom, so I got them to use a domain name. So now they don't have to send out a link for every meeting. Everyone in the gym knows what the domain is, and they just go to that domain to open up their Zoom meeting when it's time for their class.
Is your gym using a .club?
They're all using everyone I mentioned just now is using a .club. I don't want to say what domain they're using because I don't want them to be Zoom bombed, but but they are using a .club domain.
Yeah, I think finally our friends and family know what we do for a living.
Isn't that ironic? Yeah, it certainly is. Yeah, everybody gets it now. All right, Drew, what'd you buy or sell lately? You had a tweet.
Hold on. Before we leave this conversation, I want to go back to Jeff. Okay. What are you guys doing with that join the .club? You still own that? You guys have it, right?
Probably. I could look it up, but I'm sure we do.
I was thinking about this, I don't know, it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, that, I just listened to my wife, and it's like, she's talking to her friends, and, everybody's complaining about the homeschooling, everyone's complaining about fucking everything.
And they always say, join the club.
Join the club, yep. Right? And I was thinking about it the other day, I heard her say that, I just, whatever, I think about domain names, and it doesn't matter what happens, it's like, there's a domain for that. And so, I heard that, and I was like, oh, man, join the .club. And I was like, I wonder if they still, because I don't remember why, but when you did that whole 50 cent into club, there was, I remember there was something also around join the .club, and there was, and I was thinking about it like, man, you guys have got an opportunity there for marketing. There's a marketing opportunity to do something with join the .club, and nothing promotional, just create a Zoom room for people to come and just complain, or
that's a great. It's a great idea. It could be a venting. It could be a place for people to just vent their frustrations.
Hire a psychologist. Hire a psychologist. Paid for by .club, and people could just show up and rant. You got 5 minutes to just rant, right?
We can set that up.
Or maybe there's like different windows. Like you go to join the .club, and there's like 8 different selections. It's like here I need a psychologist. I just need to I need like a punching bag. It's like I'll volunteer. I'm a great punching bag.
We'll have to get it up and running. We have to get up and running before the show airs. We have to get it up and running.
I love it. I think it'd be great.
We have it fully staffed right here. We're going to have Jeff's fiance, the providing mental health support in one box. Another box, you can see Zach and take a cooking class. Another one, you can get all Zen and meditate with Bill Sweetman. Then another one, you can rant with Drew Rosener. I think, boom, you got it all right there. No. There is definitely a lot of fun marketing campaigns around that.
I think it's a good idea. Really, we'll have to jump on.
Join the .club has huge viral potential. I don't know what the concept is, but there is a huge potential there.
All right,
in this environment. All right, I'm going to be honest. We sold a bunch of domains. However, I can't really talk about most of these. What I will say, Bill and I just did a deal. It hasn't fully completed yet, but I'm 100% confident it will. But
it only took 2 years too. I think 2 years.
Might have been more than 2 years, but it was at least 2 years. It was at least 2 years to close that deal. who would have thunk that 2 years later, in the midst of the world's worst crisis, we'd actually come to the finish line.
No, I didn't think the deal would close, so I'm ecstatic that it worked out.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
How often does a deal take 2 years, and why?
More often than you might think, to be honest with you. But
that's 2 years that I was involved,
mhm.
because my client, I think he'd been stalking the name, I think earlier than I got involved too, and he loved the domain and he couldn't let it go out of his mind. So, but he also, I think it took him a while to kind of justify the value.
The price. Yeah.
Yeah. Can we get a price range for any deal that takes 2 years is not, $20,000 deal. Is it typical any deal that lasts that long is always 6 figures, mid 6 figures and up?
Not necessarily. I think everything's relative. I mean, I've had deals that took a long time that were very small deals that just, for that person, that was a lot of money to wrap their head around. It just took time for them to get to a position. I mean, I'm doing a deal. We've got a deal. I won't mention the name because I don't want to, but we've got a very small deal that literally, I mean, I think it was like 7 years in the making until it went into escrow, and it's like a $3,700 transaction.
But why did you spend the time in that, Drew?
Well, I didn't spend. I just, I replied no, year after year after year until finally they said yes. So that's just what it is.
I'll say that, as a buyer broker, I think sometimes people they underestimate the amount of work that a buyer broker does to get the buyer to pay or agree to pay a realistic amount for a domain. There's a lot of, and I know obviously Drew and his team, educate buyers along those same lines, but it's a lot of kind of homework that has to be done before a buyer may be ready to pull the trigger. And in this case, it was 2 years back and forth with my buyer client to kind of, convince him, yeah, this is worth what you're going to end up paying. And I think he got a great deal. I think Drew's happy with how it worked out. And it's always great working with Drew and his team.
It's not surprising that even the lower price name took so long, because the education process when you're dealing with an end user is the same. It's irregardless of the price. The education, the convincing, getting them to understand the value of using a proper domain name, the right domain name for their business, whether it's a .club, .com, whatever. That education process is sometimes painful, takes a lot of time, and it's separated from the price. It has nothing to do with the price.
Well said. All right, Drew, stop fooling around here. Give us a name.
Okay. Shoot, hold on.
I knew it.
Okay, let's. All right. Snowcrab.com. We bought to buy. Snowcrab.com. Snowcrab, like snow crab legs, the buffets that used to exist that may not exist in the future.
I have a question. Is that one word or two? Would you spell that snow capital crab or snow crab one?
Good question. I actually, honestly, I'm not sure what the proper, if it's one or two words. I would guess it's two. But I'm not
as a vegan who doesn't eat seafood, I just assume that was someone who's like in a bad mood during the winter. They're a snow crab.
I will say, so one thing I'll say is I've basically become 100% vegan. I was 80% or 90% of the way there, except for seafood. But basically over the course of the last 3 or 4 months, I think on the 18th, I'll have been. Yeah, on the 18th, which is the day I canceled NamesCon, the January 18th. So then I've been 4 months in quarantine. Anyways, I really don't eat anything anymore. But snow crab,
But
tell you
snow
what, you give me some snow crab, I will eat some snow crab. That stuff is good. Bill knows, he's a Canadian.
Actually, I'm not. I sort of think I've heard snow crab, but I actually don't know. Like, I think I've heard snow crab legs.
You just lost your Canadian citizenship.
Uh-oh. So are they? Is it from north? Like is it from the Pacific? Like up near, like Vancouver? It's like,
yeah, it's basically all North Pacific.
oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
From Alaska
so, okay.
to, it basically does the whole band, actually, I believe. It's
Okay.
not, I don't think we have it in the Atlantic, though. I think it's Pacific, and it's basically that whole band.
Like I
Well,
know
see, I'm vegetarian.
crabs, but I haven't heard of snow crabs.
Yeah.
before.
Okay, I'm completely shocked. And snow crab, I think I have known the term since I was like 2.
Me too. Me too. Long before I was in the fish business, I was eating some snow crab off the buffet, let me tell you.
Yeah. So
Take me to Red Lobster and give me some snow crab. Forget the lobster, I want snow crab.
yeah, I feel like if you said, what's some high-end seafood or fancy seafood to like your average American, they would say lobster, crab legs, and maybe snow crab.
Really?
But maybe that's my Massachusetts upbringing. Although, yeah, who knows? Anyway, okay. Now it's your turn that you're changing the subject instead of guessing. You can't be gleaning information. Come on, what do you think? So Drew, you sold it, you bought it, what happened?
We bought it.
Okay, so media options acquisition. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Go. What do you guys think you paid for it?
All right. So I see it kind of like I value it. It's like lobster.com, but way less valuable. But who knows? Maybe it's a bigger market.
Which we own also, by the way. We also own lobster.com.
Oh, that's very cool. That is a killer.
Yeah, but lobster.com has more of a claw to it, I think. It's just got
Oh, Jeff.
And lobster.com could be used for things other than the selling of lobster. Whereas snow crab, probably its best usage is in, to sell snow crab, whatever that may be, says the vegetarian. So I'm thinking in the hopes that you will resell it, that if you got that name for let's say $20,000, you did like well, because one would hope you could sell it for 3, 4, 5 times that amount to the right buyer. So I'll say $20,000.
All right, so I'm going to go lower again because Drew bought it, and he's a good buyer, and I think while he has the knowledge of it as his fishmongering past, I'm not sure it's not like you said, Bill, it's not as good as lobster.com. It's not.
Once a fishmonger, always a fishmonger. Don't tell me about
You just said you've been fully vegan for 4 months. I don't know.
That doesn't mean I can't still sell fish.
Exactly. You don't have to sell what you consume. So I'm going to go. I think.
Don't get high on your own supply.
I think Drew bought this name very shrewdly. I'm going to say he paid $5,750 for it.
I don't know, but I'm going to say you paid like $500 for it. But that's no.
Well, you don't get to guess. You're the one that enters it in the inventory.
I know, but I just copy and paste. No, I think you paid like $1,100 for it. That's my guess.
Yeah. So $1,750. $1,750.
Awesome.
And I literally, this was a mind-bending steal in my opinion. I mean, maybe I'm crazy, but yeah, I was like, I couldn't believe it when the auction ended. I think it was a GoDaddy auction. It was an expired domain on GoDaddy, and there was like no bidding, and I couldn't believe it. I had a proxy for much higher, and I was just sitting there waiting, and it just ended. And I thought, wow, okay. Immediately paid with the credit card, and that's it. Snowcrab.com, $1,750. Yeah.
What will you
Well
list
done.
that for sale for, Drew?
I don't know. Probably, it throws me off because it's like when you get something for 1750, you're like, maybe I'm off. But if I had, in a vacuum, if I hadn't just bought it for 1750, I'd probably price it at 50, 75,000, something like that, maybe even 100. Yeah, I think somewhere in that range. I'd have to look at the numbers. Let's see what the search is. If there's any advertisers. But just I know for a fact there's a business. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. So we'll see.
Snow crab it is.
Good one. Yeah.
Snow crab it is.
Looking forward to hearing that on the next Sherpa, what you sold it for. Very cool. All right, guys, let's take a second. This was good. Let's talk about our sponsors who support us in our mission to educate folks in the domain industry. And then we'll get right into going through the NameJet domains, okay?
FD was built by domain investors to increase your inquiries, sales, and profit. Forget spreadsheets and archived emails. Manage your entire investment portfolio in one place using a secure and completely confidential platform. Learn more at ft.com. That's EFTY, ft.com.
All right, we're ready for the marketplace list. The segment is sponsored by NameJet.com. We're reviewing domains heading to auction soon. If you like one of the names on the list, you do need to click through soon because once the auction begins, you can't bid on it or even watch it if you haven't already set that up. So for transparency, real quick, does anyone own or are you brokering any of the names on the list?
No.
All righty. Jeff, you're up first this time. And I know there, so 2 weeks ago when we did a Sherpa panel, we talked a little bit, there were a couple registry names going up. And they're with some different, some of the new GTLDs. So I know a few of them are back on here. Those are actually live to bid on now, like my.domains and online.university, fake.news. Anyway, so Jeff, what stands out to you on this list? What do you like? What would you recommend people acquire?
Yeah, so the ones I like the best, I'll talk about those first. So I actually like adventuregear.com a lot. And even though we are stuck at home presently, I think that people are going to be itching to do stuff and go out and go hiking and kayaking and all these things, which are actually activities that are adventurous, but you can actually do them without large crowds of people, which I think people are going to feel more comfortable about. So I think adventuregear.com is a great name because people will be buying a lot of adventure gear. I even bought a kayak during this pandemic because I live near a river and I can just walk it over there and do that. So I think adventure gear is great.
Did you buy a hard kayak or an inflatable one?
No, I got an inflatable because I don't have anywhere to keep a hard kayak. I live in a condo. So, and I can just carry it with me, inflate it and get going. So
I have 2 inflatable kayaks. I love them. And I see more inflatable ones than hard ones when I'm out anyway.
Yeah, and you'll be able to buy them at adventuregear.com. So that's great. I also like, even though it's .org, which has obviously been in the news lately for various reasons, I really like galaxy.org. I think space is going to be more than the final frontier. And there's a lot of opportunities, and even as a .org, the kinds of information, I just can see a lot of potential uses for galaxy.org. So I like that one as well. I'm not always big on the brandables, but I think Blue Raven has a good sound to it. I can envision a logo for it. So I think that while it's not a great keyword, .com domain, I think that's something that could be brandable for almost any kind of industry. And I think you can come up with a great logo and it's somewhat memorable. So Blue Raven, I think, is a good name for a startup to use as a brandable name if that's what they're looking for. And then on the non.coms, I didn't see any .clubs on the list, but You know, my domains is a fun thing, but I don't know what you would do with it, you know, commercially. And, you know, I'm not sure, you know, how someone would monetize that. It'd be a great personal name for someone to have or for a broker to have, but I'm not too hot on that. Obviously, given the world we're in now, online.university is a very interesting name and has a great deal of potential right now. And I know there are other people using .university names for online learning. I know that, for example, Jason Calacanis, I think is using a .university name. I think Angel.university he's using for one of his online things. So I think online.university could be very interesting too, especially given the push towards online learning right now. So those are probably my 4 favorite on the list.
Sorry, makes sense. I had to text my kids to be quiet. But I heard what you said.
Not Tonight. Not Tonight was on NameJet recently.
That's what I remember.
We talked about that when Shane was on.
Yeah.
I remember talking about that one. I guess that's a repeat.
I don't see that on this list.
Are you thinking tickets tonight, Drew?
Am I crazy?
Yeah.
Hold on.
I think if you want to ask that question.
Not Tonight. I see Not Tonight.
I don't.
Maybe you're looking at a different list. How about I'll put it in the chat for you. We have, yeah.
Oh, wait a minute.
This is Bill and Jeff.
Hi, nice to meet you.
One of you was going to be Shane. Which one would it be? Who can?
Okay, I don't know. Let's see. I don't know what I did.
All right.
The truth.
Do you want me to go with my picks for now while Drew familiarizes himself with some domains?
Yes.
That helps.
Thank you, Bill.
Please.
That would be great.
So
I literally have had the wrong list in front of me the whole time, and I'm like,
hey,
what am I doing wrong?
It could have made it a more interesting show, but we'll go with the correct list. So as further evidence that Jeff and I are brothers from another mother, my standout favorite on that list is adventuregear.com. I could consider that like a brand in a box. You can just immediately see the e-commerce store that you could build around that. It's a fantastic name. So that was by far and away my favorite. There were 3 others that kind of caught my eye. One is G10.com, which is problematic because it's like, well, is it the letter G or is it GEE? You know, I don't know. I didn't do any research on that, so I don't know if that's a Samsung phone and there's a trademark issue. I have no idea. But it's a short name. It might appeal to Chinese buyers or Chinese business people. I don't know, not my word, but I like the fact it's short and kind of memorable, all things considered. I also like mediaattorney.com. The reason I like that, there's lots of potential end user buyers. There are lots of attorneys, and there are lots of attorneys that specialize in the media. And one of the ones that came to mind is somebody many of us know, Talia Staper, who is a fantastic attorney in the intellectual property space. And she's also all over the media, and she's very good, and she gets interviewed by CNN and lots of other news publications and news channels. So when I saw media attorney, I thought, oh, Talia should know about that, but I don't want everybody to start chasing Talia and saying, go and buy that name. I think she's fine with what she has. But and then the last one that caught my eye, I have mixed feelings about this one. It's ticketstonight.com. So a couple of years ago, I would have said, oh, that's a fantastic name because it's got the alliteration. And once again, you can almost see the business. It sounds like a last minute ticketing store. You're in a major city. You want to get some get some tickets for a show that's tonight. You go to Tickets Tonight and get it. The only hesitation I have about that, so I think it's a fantastic brand, but I'm a little hesitant because I know a couple of people in the kind of online ticketing world, and apparently it's just a cutthroat business. The margins are really, really low. And I've just heard it's really, really hard to make a decent living anymore in the kind of online ticketing world. But as a brand, I do think it's a strong brand and a great domain. I just don't know if now's the time to be launching a ticket business using that domain.
Fair enough. Yeah, good point. Drew, what are your thoughts? What stands out to you here?
Yeah, these guys have covered most of it. I mean, I mean, Galaxy.com is the one that really like pops out to me just because, I mean, I don't know. I said it, I think, on the last show with Hope.net. I still like .nets and .orgs. It's a disease. I can't get over it. I'm seeking help. But I just, you know, I like big, bold words that everybody in the world knows. And sometimes I even like them on other extensions. So I like Galaxy.org.
And everyone in the universe knows that, not just everyone in the world. Everyone in the universe.
Right? Exactly. Galaxy. I would even like Galaxy.club. Like that wouldn't even be a bad domain. I'd like that. I just said Galaxy. I don't know. What do you do with that, right? You create a Galaxy Foundation. But you know, whatever. I like it. I like G10. You know, but you know, I think I don't know what the business angle is. I don't know what the commercial value of that name is beyond just being a short three-character name that has liquid value to China. You know, but you know, G10 was, I guess, before the G7 when we kicked out Russia and some other folks. And you know, so I don't know. There's something to it. I like that name. I just like G10. I think. I like the letter G. Number 10 is a good number. I don't know. So whatever reason, it's one of those things. Sometimes names call out to you. And when I look at a piece of paper with a bunch of names on it, most of them will not call out to me. Some of them do. And G10 calls out to me, so I like it. Even if I can't explain it. Spot on with Tickets Tonight. You know, great brand, but good luck. Like, that is one of the hardest spaces on the internet is tickets. Very hard. I would say even harder than insurance. So, you know, I'm kind of determined to buy fake.news, but I say that cautiously because I don't encourage anybody to buy it. Even though, like, you forget about, I'm not trying to discourage competition. Because it really is a domain. It's like, I kind of want to buy it because I want to make an email address and I just want to tease people. But like, you know, I don't know what you do with it commercially. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it can be like The Onion, but like The Onion is only interesting because there's enough people that don't know everything on The Onion is fake. So they go to The Onion thinking they've read something that's real. But if the title of your website's fake.news, there's no fooling anybody. So you know, I don't really know. You know, I guess it could be like a myth busting site. That could be interesting. Maybe a myth buster type of site. But I don't know. I kind of like it just because it's like fake news is such a big topic, and fake.news is kind of funky.
It should just be redirected to Snopes. It should just redirect to Snopes so you can debunk all this stuff. Yeah.
I literally, for a second, thought you were saying to snow crabs.
No.
I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. How come
it's that kind of day.
Yeah. How come no one mentioned buildvalue.com?
So that was actually going to be the last name that I mentioned. Is I don't think so. I like these names because I think they offer a very attractive upside when the timing becomes right. But these are not liquid names. So you have to be very careful because a name like Build Value will probably go for a decent price. And you're going to sit on it for probably a pretty decent amount of time. But it is a good domain. It's a very good domain. You know, unfortunately, I think we're in a period of humanity where for the next couple of years at least, building value is going to be out of style. I think that we're heading into a very
survival mode. It's not,
crisis mitigation, survivals, a little bit of socialism mixed in, but we're not really going into a full-on capitalist, wave the flag for the capitalist society. And so build value, I don't know, but I like it a lot. I do. I like build value, and I probably will bid on that one. I probably will bid on that. Probably bid on fake news. I'll probably bid on Galaxy.
Okay. And what about Rowan? Rowan is a great 5-letter, 1-word, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant. That's my cousin's name. It's a very traditional, is it Welsh? I know her mom's from Wales. I think it's Welsh name. Nobody?
It's kind of British, European, kind of obscure men's first name, also a surname. I just like surnames are not very liquid. You'll get hundreds of people with last name Rowan or first name Rowan wanting to pay you $500 for it.
Exactly.
It also is a tough name for the radio.
And remember that this man right here has a pretty good amount of experience with first and last name.coms, having previously managed the real names portfolio for 2Cows. So he's going to have more insight into these than anybody.
And it's a tough one from the radio test perspective, because it's not a common name here, at least. Is it AN? Is it EN? Did I mishear it as rowing? I'm going to rowing.com?
Mm-hmm.
Rowing, it's not as clear cut as it could be. In fact, that's one I think would be better if it was a first and last name. So if there was someone that was well known whose first name was Rowan, the first last combination would be a better domain than just Rowan.
I do think if there's a Rowan company out there, perhaps named after their founder, they should be like all over that auction or hire a broker to get them that name, because that's an incredible name for them if they're called Rowan as a company name. But
I didn't know that.
There's a university in Glasgow called Rowan, apparently. I didn't know that. I'm just Googling. And apparently, so you got a little bit of trademark risk, depending on what you do with it. I don't know. I like it. There was a comment from Howard Marks, a very infamous investor, Oak Tree Capital, which I think is the largest hedge fund in the world. And he made a comment that I really liked. And it was that basically to the point of everything is great at the right price. And so it's like, Rowan.com, give a couple $100, maybe $1,000, $2,000, great name. I love it. But that's not what it's going to end up going for, right? So that's why I kind of overlook it, because I some names even though they're glaringly, they have value, there's certainly going to be a number of people that would love to own Rowan.com, and maybe a number of companies that would like to own Rowan.com. Surely the university would like to own Rowan.com at the right price. But that delta between what you're going to pay and what the upside might be is just going to be less attractive than other names that are on this list and other names that are on other lists in other auctions, etc. So that's the way I'm looking at this. And I'm just saying, sure, Rowan.com. I mean, look, let's see. Estebat says it's worth 30 grand. Estebat says it's got a little bit of traffic, probably because of the university, right? It's a good domain. Nobody's going to tell you, oh, that's a shit domain, let it expire. But particularly in the context of this show, we're not looking at these names in a vacuum. We're looking at them in the context of this is going to go to auction, and what is it likely going to sell for? And then can you make a profit trying to sell it after that? In that context, I don't love Rowan because I think it'll probably go for more than you're going to want to own it for, based on what it'll likely sell for and the time it'll take, and some of the nausea that may ensue prior to the sale. And
that is exactly what our audience needs to hear. I almost feel like we should just get that clip and put it on every show. Because that's really, it's how do you make a decision on which domains? Because it is difficult. Thanks, guys.
I think someone actually pointed this out to me recently, in regard, not in terms of domains, but in regards to stock, investing in stocks. And you can't look at an individual stock. I mean, if you said to me, what's a great company to buy stock in right now? I'd tell you Amazon. Amazon's a great company. They're not going anywhere. This virus isn't going to kill Amazon, I'll tell you that. It's one thing I'm positive about. This virus will not kill Amazon. But is that the question you were asking? Probably not, right? If you were asking me, hey, what's a good stock to buy today? You're asking me, where can I make money? Where's a good company I can buy relative to the value? Where can I find some delta? Where can I find, or I guess in investing they call it alpha. Where can I find alpha? Where can I find something I can buy for a good price that's worth more? And so what the comment that I appreciated earlier this week from a friend of mine who is a very successful investor was that, don't evaluate any one investment decision in and of itself. You have to look at it in the broader context of your next best option, because what we're talking about is capital allocation, right? And so unless you're an end user and you're looking for one specific domain, our job as an investor, whether you're investing in stocks, domain names, real estate, it doesn't matter, is to efficiently and effectively allocate capital. So if I have, all of us, I don't care how rich or how poor you are, if you put on your investor hat, you have a fixed amount of capital. You don't have unlimited capital unless you're the United States Federal Reserve. And so you have to look at it in the context of your optionality. And you have to say, okay, I have $10,000 that I have available to spend. Rowan.com, yeah, sure, you probably buy Rowan.com for 10 grand. If you hold it long enough, you won't lose money. But is that the best place to allocate that 10 grand? Right? And I think you need to go through, this broader context to understand, don't just jump on a domain because you say, well, but clearly that domain is worth X. Sure, but you could make X squared by investing in this other domain that's an even better price relative to its potential sale. Or you could invest in this other domain because the sales velocity will be faster and you'll get your money back even if the return is lower, right? I think the biggest mistake, and I am guilty of this mistake, and I only became really aware of it or was able to put it into words after my friend pointed this out to me in stocks, because I made this argument to him. I said, man, look at this stock. This is a great stock. Like, I don't understand. Why is the price going down? Instead of whatever, right? And this thing was trading for like 3 times earnings, right? What am I missing here? And so, he said, well, yeah, you're right. But what about this one, right? And so it could be that maybe that's attractive stock, but if you look at the broader industry that stock is in, there's more attractive stocks. Or maybe it's that's an attractive stock, but actually that industry is okay. But what about look at this industry, right? So it's, well, okay, we've got, whatever it is, 20 names on here, and there's a bunch of them that are good. But what about all the other names on NameJet? Is there a better place to allocate that capital? Or should I be looking at GoDaddy and mid-Dropcat? In the context of our job as a domain investor, and I'm sorry, guys, I don't mean to print so much, but it really was a pretty revelational, such a subtle point that he made to me, is like, you can't look at each investment in a vacuum. You have to look at it in the context of where else can I allocate this capital better?
Amen.
And a similar
story short, Rowan.com, not your best investment on that list.
But in a similar fashion, shouldn't a domain investor balance their portfolio the way you'd balance a stock portfolio? So you might have that domain that you know is going to hold its value. It may not have the delta, but it's not going to go down, you know, and it's going to be solid 10 years from now. And that's money in the bank, so to speak, that's safe.
Absolutely.
And then you have some names that, you know, they're a gamble. You're getting them low. They could return 10x or 100x, or they could go nowhere, you know, and you just got to balance
100%.
it just like you would do your stock portfolio.
Yeah.
And again, that balancing act is going to come down to what are your goals? How much, you know, are you in this for the long term? And do you need money now? You know, like that's exactly right. The same questions that a financial, you know, manager would ask you, you should be asking yourself when you invest in domains. And Jeff's absolutely right.
Yeah. All right. We're really already in our third section, but let's take a minute here for our advertisers as well, just to hear who's bringing this to you.
FD was built by domain investors to increase your inquiries, sales, and profit. Forget spreadsheets and archived emails. Manage your entire investment portfolio in one place using a secure and completely confidential platform. Learn more at ft.com. That's EFTY, ft.com.
All right, time for our third section. We're going to talk a little bit about what you guys hope, dream, or thinking of for the next 3 to 5 years in the domain industry. Drew, I don't know if you want to go first or you want to pass it on.
I'll pass the baton.
All right, okay. Let's start with you, Bill. You're jumping in there for us.
Sure, happy to.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, on the one hand, this industry or the industry of people being able to buy and sell premium domain names has made great progress. It's, you know, it's more efficient. There are some better tools out there, you know, like it's definitely better, but it's still horribly inefficient. It's still painful and confusing for the buyers. I mean, this morning, I must have had 30 emails back and forth with this end user buyer who was buying a very nice 2-word brandable domain from a client. And, you know, the whole, and it was a push from the seller's registrar account to the buyer's registrar account. So that's the easiest kind of delivery of a name. And he was understandably confused. We had to restart it. The seller was confused. So I was texting with the seller, I was emailing the buyer, and it's like, for, you know, like, really, does it have to be that complicated? So I hope that in the next few years, the buying of domain names gets so much easier. Escrow is so much more seamless in general, and it's just becomes a much better experience for all parties. That's my dream. That's
a beautiful dream. Yeah. 30 emails back and forth in one morning. Did they not
in half an hour, because it was like, well, I got this and I clicked on this link and it threw an error, and he's a sharp guy. It was nice because some buyers would be getting all upset, and so we were just helping him through that, and it's not his fault, you know, it's just a broken process, and I hope it gets fixed one day. And I'm happy to participate in fixing it if I can.
Of course, yeah. How about you, Jeff? What's going on? What are your thoughts?
Oh, as I mentioned earlier, I think we're very fortunate to be in a digital space. You know, we've seen, you know, this year, even in spite of this pandemic, our premium sales have been outstanding. We've had on the .com chart, the non.com charts on DN Journal, we've been in there with .club sales, you know, 12 of the 13 weeks this year, and that we see no difference. And I think a lot of that's being driven by what we talked about earlier. You know, there's an opportunity now for people who never thought about having an online presence before, or never thought about having a business that they could operate online before, are now open to those opportunities. And of course, every one of them needs a domain name. They need hosting. They need all the services that our industry provides. And they need premium names because, again, as that space gets crowded now with all these new entrants, the better domain name you have, the easier it is going to be for people to find you. So the value of premium names, I think, at every level should be increasing right now. And we're seeing that anecdotally, and we're seeing that in our daily and weekly sales just from .club's perspective. And I'm sure it's carrying through to other extensions and throughout the industry. And I think also the connectivity of groups, the fact that people are having their own little Zoom clicks with family and friends, not just for business anymore, is going to drive, again, more people to understand the value of private communities they control versus just going into the big players like Facebook, et cetera. And that'll also create more demand for domain names as people want to make it easier and have brands for those little private communities that they're creating. So I think that it's unfortunate to be driven by this horrible situation we're in, but I think, this is one of the few industries that in the long term should actually, come out okay and maybe even benefit from the situation we're currently in.
Definitely agree with that. Yeah. I had a really fun call yesterday with Steve Sachs while he was driving in his Maserati, and every so often I'd have to stop talking. Just literally, it was like, how normally you might hear like vroom, this was like a vroom, like on. It was pretty funny. But I was just telling him a little bit about like what I saw in 2008 when I worked at GoDaddy, and everyone having to re-examine reinvent, definitely, but re-examine, why am I not online? What else can I be doing online? But also, I feel like these are the moments when people are willing to make changes, when people are willing to change perspectives.
Yep.
A lot of the objectives that, objections that we struggle to overcome when talking, especially with corporate clients, it's time for a fresh new mindset if you want to survive. So I think just like '08, this is going to bring in really smart new blood and new mindset. So I'm kind of excited to see what innovation. I think we have such a creative industry. I'm kind of curious, about a lot of things. But Drew, your turn. Sorry.
5 years out, I'm pretty bullish on the domain market, that's for sure. I had a lot of people, I made a tweet the other day just saying that the first week of May was the best week that we've had this year. Really, what I was trying to say was, putting that in context was that was very much in contrast with some of the sentiments that I've shared here, particularly on DomainSherpa over the last few weeks, that, business has been down. I mean, I actually think, it's been very strange. I mean, January was the best month. It was like maybe the best month I think we've ever had in the history of the company. And then February was okay, pretty standard, normal, down a bit. March was horrible. April was, March was basically a write-off. April was so-so, bit of an uptrend. And then May, still early, but the first week of May was an absolute boom, and some of that was pipeline, but a lot of it was new. There was really like a couple of deals that just came out of nowhere. It was just new buyers, new, just new business. There wasn't something we've been working on. It wasn't pipeline. It was just new business. And my sentiments, my interpretation of the interaction, my interpretation of the new business that suddenly showed up at our door, and I don't want to say this, I mean, new business shows up at our door a lot, right? But not necessarily in this environment. So I would say, I think that So uncertainty, and I've discussed this before, uncertainty is a cancer. Uncertainty is worse than bad news. So when you have bad news, you can plan accordingly, you can deal with it, you can make decisions. When you have uncertainty, the whole world went into, for basically like 8 weeks, the whole world was like a deer in headlights. Nobody knew what to do. I mean, just look at stock markets. It was like nobody knew up, down, all around. People are stuck at home. They're trying to figure out this work from home thing. They're trying to figure out this Zoom thing. They're trying to figure out this teach your kids at home schooling thing. I mean, it's just been a lot of figuring shit out. And I think the whole world's been like a deer in headlights for the last 2 months. And I'm not gonna, I'm not extrapolating this out anywhere beyond just the domain market, because I think that economically, we haven't seen anything yet, to be honest with you. I think that the worst is yet to come. And I think that we've only just begun to gaze over into the abyss, to be honest. That's my honest opinion. I think that in the fall is when we're going to start seeing it get really ugly. We'll start seeing corporate debt unwinding. That will lead to pension plan unwinding, which will lead to sovereign debt crisis unwinding. And that's all going to play out, I think, over the next 24 months. And I think it's going to be devastating, like truly. I honestly was like almost in tears, and I'm not a very emotional person. In fact, I sometimes worry I don't have any emotions. But I really was like almost in tears the other day, like just extrapolating this out and thinking it in my head. And I've really been studying extensively. I've been reading history. I've been trying to really get an understanding of what it is that we're facing here. And I do think it's going to be horribly, horribly bad. I think there's very few people who actually grasp how bad I think this will be. And I'm not even talking about the virus anymore, because I think there's just a lot of uncertainty in terms of the virus itself. I'm talking purely economical. And having said all of that, what I keep coming back to is that domain names are truly the underlying asset of the digital economy. Sorry.
More new business coming in.
Yeah. So as the underlying assets of the digital economy, I don't think that there's really, if you zoom out far enough, I don't think that, I really just don't think that there's anywhere for domain names to go but up. And I hate to say that, because there's no such thing as easy money, and there's no such thing as unilateral directional markets. Although the S&P 500 would, trying to argue with people about that. But I do think that that's just simply right. I think that we're not making more premium.com domains. We're not, in fact, to be honest with you, we're not making more premium domains within the context of any particular string at all. And so whether it's investors or registries holding back as premiums, or registrars, or domain names have gone through a few cycles of business cycles already. And when I got into this business, which was already late, there were fewer people in the market, but there was a lot more uncertainty. And I think, as parking went away, you had a lot of people fall out of the market. And then as, the 2008, 2009, 10 crisis happened, which sort of coincided with the backside of parking starting to go down, a lot more people fell away. And then in 2017, there was, some nausea, and a lot of other people fell away. I think at this point, the vast majority of great domain names are in the hands of strong investors. They're in strong hands. They're not in the hands of people who need to sell, and they're not in the hands of people who want to sell unless they get their price. For the most part, it's a very broad and general statement, and I'm primarily talking about premium.coms that are 20, 25 years old. But I think that that's a pretty fair statement, and that's been my experience dealing with domain owners both on the buy and sell side. So I would guess that Bill would probably concur with that. It's getting harder to buy domains, not easier. And so I think that that trend, even if it gets interrupted by some economic nausea, that trend will perpetuate. I don't see anything that will stop that trend. And in fact, when you look at the world and you think, okay, yes, we're in this financial crisis, but value is much, in my mind at least, and I welcome anybody to tell me I'm wrong, but value in general is like energy. So you can't make more of it, you can't make less of it. Cumulative gross value in the world is a fixed amount. And how you measure that is up for debate. I have my thoughts, but regardless of how you measure it, gross value is a singular and finite amount. And what happens is that that value shifts around, and parts of it lives here in one asset class, part of it over here in another, and it shifts around based on a bunch of exogenous factors like federal interest rates, liquidity, economic data, preferences, society. There's all these exogenous factors, and those exogenous factors, exogenous meaning from outside, not directly correlated, are far more powerful than the endogenous factors. Now, the endogenous factors, if we're talking about domain names, endogenous meaning from within, exogenous meaning from without. So the endogenous factors that affect domain names are far less meaningful than the exogenous factors. And the same could be said about the stock market. And that was really, again, where I came to this conclusion, was that you cannot tell me that it makes sense that the S&P 500 is near all-time highs when we have close to 30% unemployment in the United States, right? Those two things are just incongruous, seemingly incongruous. But the reality is that they're only incongruous if you're examining the value of the stock market based on the expected earnings of the companies within. That would be, so those earnings or expected earnings are the endogenous factors, or one of the endogenous factors, probably the most important endogenous factor, in putting a value on a particular stock or company. The exogenous factors are, again, pretty similar for all these asset classes. It's interest rates, money supply, society. It's all these different exogenous factors. And particularly in a high volatility environment like we have right now, the exogenous factors are far more correlated to the price of an asset than the endogenous factors. And that is why the stock market is at all-time high, because there's trillions of dollars in various forms of monetary intervention, and zero interest rates or negative interest rates in parts of the world, right? These are the things that are driving this, not the valuations of these companies. And the same can be said for domains. So we have a lot of exogenous factors that are going in our favor. And the endogenous factors are more or less, let's call it a push, okay? I would say there's probably a little bit of positive uptick, .org sale got canceled. Whatever you believe about that sale, it is very important that that sale didn't happen for the sole reason that it maintains the public respect and integrity of ICANN. And that was probably the greatest endogenous threat to our business. If there is particularly political and societal loss of belief in ICANN, I can tell you that we're going to have a problem. Like this whole concept of unstoppable domains and a new DNS system on the blockchain, that shit becomes viable when the world no longer believes in ICANN. So long as the world believes in ICANN, that shit it's a sideshow. It's not gonna be meaningful. It'll be less meaningful than .biz in regards to the value of premium domain names, okay? But the moment that the world says, you know, not sure we trust this ICANN, we got a problem, okay? And I can tell you, the moment that happens, I'm jumping ship, okay? I'm in this, you know, I'm a believer. I don't think there's anybody that would doubt that. But only because there's a, you know, instilled belief in that ICANN is a, you know, objective governing body that, you know, maintains good control of the DNS. Or let's say, you know, the regulatory aspect of that. So, you know, bringing this long story to an end, there's no possible way in my mind that domain names do not become more important. And I think that the censorship, the deplatforming, which both of these guys also alluded to, you know, this is going to drive people faster to the conclusion that if you want to own a relationship with your customer or your fan or your whatever, member of your community, you better own the platform in which you engage with them. And that ain't gonna be Facebook, it's not gonna be Google, it's not gonna be anybody except your domain name. That is the only place in this digital economy where you can make a direct connection and build a direct relationship where you own the data, you own the relationship, and you own everything about that with your customer or your fan, whatever, okay? And that is just, it's just simply a fact, but it's a fact that was very easily ignored in the environment of exuberance and abundance and, you know, whatever, right? Whatever we had before this. That is gone. That's never coming back. Maybe not never, but not in my lifetime. And so I do think that all of this was already underway, but now it's here. And you know, it might take some ups and downs with this economy, but I'll tell you, I think domains are poised for, I mean, before any of this even happened, I mean, I thought domains were 3 to 5x undervalued from what the market should be, what their utility value is to the economy today. And I think that may be, I think that it might even be more than that. I think that, I think if we look out 5 years from now, I think that we're looking at a 5 to 10x increase in the value of the best domains. But in the meantime, I you know, I still maintain that, you know, there's a lot of ugliness coming, and you know, our market has been that top 2%, and quite frankly, I'm not sure that top 2% is going to perform all that well over the next 12, 18 months, just because, you know, there will be pockets, right? There will be pockets, and we will make sales. We just sold a bunch of 6- and 7-figure domain names in the last 14 days. So there will be pockets, but it'll probably be tough at the top and a lot more growth at the bottom or in the middle. But I think, you know, once we get out beyond this, I'm more bullish than I've ever been in my entire life. And not only more bullish, but I'm just like, I have more conviction. I have more conviction in my belief. So, yeah.
Thank you. That's really insightful. I think that on top of our audience just being interested in what you have to say, everyone is also pretty bored and wants a new resource. So what do you recommend? You said you've been reading a ton or researching a ton, I'm sure, you know, podcasts, whatever. What do you throw out a couple recommendations? And while I'm asking you that, Bill and Jeff, I want to ask you on a different level. Now, you're certainly welcome to throw out any business or economic recommendations, but you two are, I think, the biggest movie buffs in the entire domain industry. And I mean, almost every person I talk to is like, I've watched all of Netflix.
Yeah.
What do you recommend? So I want from the two of you some recommendations on movies or TV. But like I said, you can throw in business too. But Drew, what do you recommend? What are you reading or research? Where are you going? Where do people want to go that you are?
I mean, I'm mostly looking to history and to just legendary investors, and reading what their thoughts are and some of the more personal memos and things that are out there. There was a very interesting interview I listened to the other day. Anthony Pompliano has something called the Pomp Podcast. Anthony Pompliano is he runs a hedge fund, mostly involved in the blockchain and digital crypto industry, but also outside of that. But he's got a pretty decent macro investor mindset. I'm an investor actually with him in a startup.
And his podcast is
he has
Pomp
Podcast. The Pomp P-O-M-P podcast, and he interviewed I can't come up with the guy's name this very second, but he interviewed a guy. When these guys are talking, I'll look for it. But he's a geopolitical analyst, quite well-known one. He's written 3 books. I've listened to him before. He's a very sharp guy. He has some shortcomings and some things I don't agree with.
Is
but
this Peter
it's probably everybody. Exactly, that's it. Yep, Peter Zahan.
Peter Zahan explains the geopolitical landscape. I'll tweet it right now. How's that?
Yeah. So it was that was a really, really, really fascinating interview that I would encourage everybody to watch. Whether you're interested in Bitcoin or not, actually this had very little to do with Bitcoin and blockchain. It was mostly real macro geopolitical analysis, sort of country by country, really good stuff, really good. I always like to reference and I like to look to Sam Zell. I think he's one of the wisest of all people, never mind investors. Sam Zell is probably the most widely respected real estate investor, basically widely credited with not inventing, but proliferating the real estate investment trust. Just brilliant man. His family was, fled Warsaw, Poland on the last train out of Warsaw before the German Luftwaffe came and bombed all the railroads, and everybody else ended up in a concentration camp. They fled through Lithuania, Russia, I think Japan, somehow, and then ended up in Chicago, and with not a pot to piss in. And today he's a billionaire and one of the most infamous investors in the world, and just a humble, simple guy that truly has wisdom that you don't find many places. So basically anything from Sam Zell, I mean, read his book. But there's been a few interviews with him recently. There was an interview with him on Tim Ferriss. It might have even been before this virus started that I loved. I recently saw an interview with him on, I don't know where it was, one of the news stations.
He was on Tim Ferriss January 28th.
Yeah, and then there was, he did an interview recently that was on one of the main news stations. I don't remember which one. That wasn't a great interview, but it had some great insights from Sam. And Howard Marks, who I mentioned earlier, Oaktree Capital, he publishes all his memos that he sends out to his investors. He publishes them publicly. He's been doing that for 30 years. There's a treasure trove of amazing information. These are not short things. These are not, easy reads, but, unbelievably valuable in forming your own framework of what's going on in the world. I think I recommend listening to Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. It was the first annual shareholder meeting where, it wasn't tens of thousands of people descending on Oklahoma. He did it all on Zoom. And it was very sober and sobering, and very, very out of sorts for Warren Buffett. As somebody who's read every book he's ever written and every book that's ever been written about him, I read all his annual shareholder letters. I've been a shareholder for 20 years, maybe not 20, 15. And actually probably is closer to 20. And, I think there's a lot more to be found in that video of Warren Buffett in what he doesn't say. I think that's what you want to look for. But I think that's hard if you don't have prior context with him. But I think what he doesn't say is the most interesting.
Do you have any comments on what he doesn't say? Or
that'd be a whole other show. I won't bore everybody.
All right.
And it's also, I'm getting out over my skis here, right? Like, I'm not a financial guru. I just find this stuff to be really interesting, and I think that it helps us formulate, I think formulating a framework of what's going on in the world and where do I fit in and, where are we headed? I think it's just super important. It doesn't matter what you do. I think to figure out where you fit in and how you want to fit in and what the future holds. I think, for better or worse, I think financial markets and the people who understand them best are probably better predictors of that than most other things. And yeah.
Love your insights. All right, Jeff, you going to entertain us, business us, or both?
I guess a little of both, but to drop the bar down a bunch of levels, everyone's been watching the Tiger King series, which has been crazy. I actually was shocked to find that one of the lead characters in that story was this guy, Doc Antle, because I actually made a movie with him back when I was with Trauma, but the movie Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD required a bunch of animals in the screenplay, which I co-wrote. We needed a tiger and a lion and a monkey, and we actually hired Doc Antle and his entourage, his many women, to be the animal wranglers for the movie. And he actually appears in the movie, and his animals are in the movie, and it was quite an experience. So it was bizarre so many years later to see him suddenly rise to this pop culture level as part of that bizarre series. But I digress very much.
No, that's wild.
One business tip. I mean, Drew mentioned some great podcasts, and I listen to a lot of podcasts on a regular, literally on a daily basis, like 30 or 40 regularly, and including Tim Ferriss, which I highly recommend, especially lately. But one of the behaviors I changed in the current situation, which I highly recommend, is because I listen to so many podcasts, and it's an asynchronous thing, meaning they get downloaded into my device and I can listen whenever I want. I've always been 3-4 weeks, a month behind the current podcast, and I would just go through them sequentially. And during this situation when we're all at home, I actually changed my listening strategy and rearranged my podcast software so that I get the current episodes at the top of my playlist when they're happening. And I found that to be really great, because right now in this unique moment in time, almost every podcast is addressing it in the context of what their subject is, whether it's a science podcast or an entertainment podcast or a business podcast. There's the commentary of the present situation, which I find really interesting. So I recommend very much, if you typically listen to your podcast sequentially and you're behind a few weeks, I'd reverse it and try to listen to everything with the most current episode first, because I think there's a tremendous amount of side benefit to that right now. So that would be a recommendation. And then a viewing recommendation, just a little bit of something that's not fresh, it's not new, but if you haven't seen it yet, there's a number of seasons, so it'll take up a lot of your time. And if you have any interest in the computer industry and the history of the computer industry, there was a series called Halt and Catch Fire, which I think the last season was maybe 2 years ago. Halt and Catch Fire. And it is just outstanding. I think there's 5 or 6 seasons, and it really, it's dramatic. It's not a documentary, but it's extremely accurately and factually done, and extremely well performed and well written. And if you have any interest in the computers and technology, you'll love it. And I highly recommend that. And there's a number of seasons, so it'll keep you busy.
That's important, I think, for
very
everyone
cool.
right now. Super.
And one last, I'll make one last. Sorry?
Is that on
Yeah,
Netflix? Do you know?
Yeah, I think you can get most of the seasons on Netflix. One last recommendation for a business podcast, because it's so different from the typical business podcast, is Business Wars. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's from the Wondery Group. But Business Wars takes two companies in a similar industry and dramatizes their story in a business war. So it might be, you know, Nike versus Adidas, Mars versus M&M's, you know, Mars versus another, you know, candy company, different industries, different businesses, but it's presented dramatically with actors' voices and sound effects. And it's a very different business show, but it really gives you the history of some great companies and entrepreneurs. And I highly recommend that as well.
That sounds cool. All right. I think that
I like this. We should keep going. I want more. I need more. I need more new inputs.
Yeah. And they don't all have to be business. They could be, I mean, preferably not quite Tiger King level, but.
Yeah, I can't stoop. I just can't do it. I can't stoop down to the Tiger King. I just can't do it.
Bill, what do you got? What are you thinking?
So I've got a business recommendation and an entertainment recommendation. With the business recommendation, I always recommend, whether you get it online or buy a physical magazine, imagine that, The Economist. It's a weekly publication, and what's amazing about it is that it's of a global perspective. And they do a technology quarterly, which that's a good issue to pick up if you just want to get familiar with The Economist. But it's a fantastic publication, and that I always find it gives you such a global perspective. So that's the business recommendation. On the entertainment recommendation, you know, I'm a huge movie fanatic, as is Jeff. This has been a weird period for me because typically my wife and I would go out to a movie in a big theater at least once a week, usually Tuesday or Sunday nights or both was our movie nights. So we missed that. But we just finished watching the final episode of the final season finale of a Canadian crime series, which has been licensed around the world. So it's available in over 200 countries. It's amazing. It's called Cardinal, Cardina, like the bird, has nothing to do with birds. The main character, his last name is Cardinal, but it's an incredible series that's set in Northern Ontario, and each season is about some complicated kind of crime, and they follow it along. And the reason I'm recommending it is it's super beautifully made, really suspenseful, but also, oh my God, so uniquely Canadian. Last night, I think it was the final episode, and I'm not going to give any spoilers here, but we're watching it, and this season, the last season, is set in the winter. Not all the seasons are. And there was a police officer on a police snowmobile kind of chasing a bad guy. And I was like, oh my God, it does not get any more Canadian than that. But it's an incredible series. Cardinal, you can find it on different streaming networks. Highly, highly recommend it.
Super cool. I want to see that. Nice. Oh, well, I think.
All right. While I have two movie buffs on here, I actually have to ask you guys personal questions. So I haven't owned a television for like a very long time, 14 years. So my wife and I, when we do watch a movie, it's like on a laptop, and that's getting old. So I want to get a projector. Do either of you have any experience with projectors or know anything about projectors?
Well, I'll jump in there because I've got a home theater. Projectors are always a compromise. They do get you the biggest image, but you sacrifice picture quality. I would hugely. I would highly recommend you look at an OLED TV. That's OLED from LG or Samsung. That technology is incredible. It's super flat. The picture quality is amazing. They're not crazy expensive, and they're making them bigger and bigger. that will get you so much better picture quality and a movie-like experience than a projector.
It's just that you can't take it away. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Well, you could just sell it after the pandemic.
Yeah.
They make roll up. I think they even make like they're probably hugely expensive, but they're coming out with OLED that kind of rolls up like a window blind. But
what? No way. Are you serious?
Seriously. Yeah.
Okay, so that I'd be down for. That'd be amazing. That's like best of both worlds.
Yeah, check it out. It's like a Venetian blind. I think it's Venetian, the one you roll down. Anyway, it's the.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
So OLED.
If you just
I recommend OLED. Definitely.
If you just want a portable projector, there are a lot of better ones now. You're not going to get like a 55-inch screen with them, but if you just want something you can take and be in another place and project it on a wall and maybe have a 32-inch image on the wall that's pretty good quality, there are a lot of those available now. But I would agree with Bill, unless you absolutely need the size that just is impractical for a screen, you're much better off with OLED screens right now. And they're getting bigger and cheaper every day, literally.
Okay. All right. Let's see. I guess OLED it is.
All right, guys. This was wonderful. Thank you for taking so much time.
A wide-ranging Sherpa.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
But all interconnected. All interconnected.
And I think now we just need to see you launch Join the .club.
How much time do I have to get that up and running before this airs?
This airs on Monday, the 18th. We're filming today on the 13th.
Plenty of time.
Airs
Plenty
in
of time.
5 days.
Yeah.
All right.
Of time.
Cool. Yeah. Good luck with that.
I just saw a little mini Sherpa there for a second.
Yeah, she has her class.
Yeah.
No, she thinks it's over, but it's not. She has her class Zoom right now. So I'm trying to get her on. Sorry.
Okay.
But yeah, this was good. Thank you, guys. We'll see y'all next time.
Thanks everyone.
everybody.
Stay safe and healthy. Stay safe.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.